Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Victor the Magician, and I'd like to dedicate today's illusion to a woman by the name of Mysterri, who is very artistically talented and is currently designing a art piece based on herself and me and magic that may just possibly end up in the opening credits to this show. She's a very beautiful woman, designs very beautiful art, so hopefully this trick will be just as beautiful. Before we get started, let me introduce you to our deck of the day. These are Bicycle Stargazer playing cards. As you can see, they're designed to evoke the constellations in the way their face cards and number cards look. Well, let me see if I can find an example of a face card here. There we are. But they have this luminous, ethereal, cosmic glow. And the reason we're using these is because today's trick is all about the stars. Many people believe that our futures are written in the stars. They're not, of course, it's utter nonsense, but it is an interesting system of arcane lore to explore and think about. But today I want to do something more interesting, or a little more interesting I think, which is explain or demonstrate how it is that we can see patterns in the stars even when there aren't any. Let me show you. I have here 4 different sets of number cards. Let me just adjust the camera actually a little. There we are. We'll start with this one here. Now, this packet contains 1, 2, 3, 4 number cards, and when you see them like that, they just look like 4 number cards when I count through them quickly. Before your brain has time to see a pattern that isn't there, they look like what they are, but if I spread through them, leaving them exposed like this 1, 2, 3, and 4, one of them starts to look suspiciously like the Ace of Clubs. And that's because your brain is seeing patterns that may not necessarily really be there. The pips on the cards, the random collection of stars in the sky, form a constellation. In this case, that Ace of Clubs. But of course you know that all constellations are different, they're not just the same. So over here we have 1, 2, 3, 4 cards. Again, you see they're all number cards, just random assortments of pips like the stars in the sky, but spread through them. And your brain sees a pattern. In this case, a pattern that looks like the Ace of Diamonds. Now, having seen these patterns, it's easier to see other patterns. For example, these 1, 2, 3, 4 number cards. Well, spread through them again. I can do it quite quickly this time, and one of them almost immediately starts to look like the Ace of Spades. Just as the constellations in the sky, just as the stars in the sky form constellations when you look at them for long enough, so the pips on a card form aces when you look at them for long enough. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4 cards, all random number cards, but when spread through, the last one becomes the Ace of Hearts. Now, that's an interesting demonstration of the way the brain looks for patterns that aren't really there, and how hard it is to unsee those patterns once you've seen them. I can leave these cards sticking out and you're probably still seeing aces, even though I don't have any aces. But I can see you don't believe me. You think I really do have some concealed aces somewhere in these packets of cards. Perhaps I can prove to you that this really is just a pattern that your brain is interpreting. And the way I'm going to do that is by changing the pattern that you see. All I'm going to do is say one word that will completely change how you see this pattern, and that word is Queens. Now, this time when I spread through the cards, as you can see, we still just have 1, 2, 3, 4, but in place of our Ace of Clubs over here, we now have the Queen of Clubs. There she is. In place of the Ace of Diamonds over here, we now have the Queen of Diamonds. In place of the Ace of Spades over here, we now have 1, 2, 3, 4, the Queen of Spades. And of course, in place of the Queen of Hearts, in place of the Ace of Hearts, we'll have the Queen of Hearts over here. There we are, 1, 2, 3, 4. And there she is. We tend to look for patterns, even when there aren't any. And that's not something that we should be ashamed of, or something that we should be embarrassed by. It creates these beautiful, towering systems of arcane lore and knowledge. It doesn't matter if they're not really there. They're still beautiful and have intrinsic value as such. I'll leave you with that for today. I've been Victor the Magician, and I'll see you next time for more magic.